Federal government concludes plans with subnationals for onward distribution of fertilizer to farmers. Federal High Court fixes July 17 for ruling of contempt of court charge against counsel to Yahya Bello.
Child labor, from what I've learned, is when you force a child to engage in activities that affect their mental, social, physical well-being.
National Children Conference on Elimination of Child Labor calls for pragmatic measures to end illegal practice in Nigeria. Hello and a warm welcome to NTA Network News. We're live in Abuja. I am Jummai Yasef. Here with me in the studio tonight is Benny Adams, who is standing by for business news. Remember, you can watch this news broadcast live on nta.live/ng and also on our other social media platforms displayed on your screen. We'll begin with a report from the agriculture sector, and to boost agricultural productivity, strengthen the economy by creating opportunities in the real sectors of agriculture, manufacturing and construction, as well as provide urgent economic relief for Nigerians, President Bola Tinubu has approved the immediate rollout of the National Construction and Household Support Program to cover all geopolitical zones in the country. Under the program, the Sokoto-Badagry Highway, the Trans-Saharan and the Lagos-Calabar coastal highways are being accorded priority attention. These are parts of the resolutions of the National Economic Council NEC meeting this Thursday. State House correspondent Musbau Wahab reports.
It's the 142nd meeting of the National Economic Council, and President Bola Tinubu opted to participate. Apparently, there were present issues to discuss with the leaders of the subnational governments.
My presence here this afternoon.
These issues included the continued effort at ameliorating the social and economic hardship in town. The issues prolonged the meeting for over 4 hours of deliberation. Under the National Construction and Household Support Programs for all the geopolitical zones, President Bola Tinubu approved full counterpart financing for Port Harcourt-Maiduguri Railway to traverse rivers Abia, Enugu, Benue, Nasarawa, Plateau, Bauchi, Gombe, Yobe, and Borno states. The Ibadan-Abuja segment of the Lagos-Kano Standard Gauge Railway is to link Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Osun, Kwara, Niger, Abuja, Kaduna, and Kano states. The Sokoto-Badagry Road project is specially prioritized for its strategic importance to the agricultural sustainability of the nation. Other items under the National Construction and Household Support Program include one-off allocation to states and the Federal Capital Territory of 10 billion naira for the procurement of buses and CNG uplift program, delivery of 50,000 naira uplift grants each to 100,000 families per state for 3 months, provision for labor unions and civil society organizations, deployment of 155 billion naira for the purchase and sale of assorted foodstuff to be distributed across the nation. President Tinubu urged state governors to work together to meet the needs of citizens, promising the needed support to ensure that Nigerians are relieved of the hardship. From the State House, Musbau and Wahab, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the federal government and the African Union is working towards providing a sustainable single-digit loan scheme for micro, small and medium enterprises to access affordable credits. Deputy Chief of Staff to the President, Ibrahim Hadija, stated this at the opening of the 2024 International Dialogue organized by the federal government and the African Union. State House correspondent Abdurrahman Jibrila tells us more.
27th of June is here again, and this is a gathering of call to action to address a continental issue using a continental solution.
And I know, I'm continent, we can do something about this. The answer to some of these hurdles is not outside this continent, it's here.
Micro, small and medium enterprises in Nigeria accounts for 96% of all businesses and has contributed to 46% of the gross domestic product.
And without them, 80% of the current Nigerian workforce will be without employment. These facts provide us with the evidence that if MSMEs prosper, Nigeria prospers. And we can say the same about Africa and indeed the entire world.
The African Union will sustain its global advocacy for MSMEs financing to fill the gaps with a focus on utilizing innovative digital infrastructures, including digital public infrastructure, for removing various traditional barriers in order to enhance financial inclusion.
So what we have done is to assemble a group of technocrats, people that can match standards anywhere in the world, to come and try or attempt to provide solutions to what these issues are.
With the recent launch of the 150 billion naira intervention fund for the MSME in partnership with the Bank of Industry at a single-digit loans is among other interventions of the federal government aimed at devising the appropriate continental solution for this continental problem. In Abuja, Abraham Jibrila, NTA News.
And from the judiciary, we hear the Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has fixed July 17 to rule on whether it will charge counsel to former governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, for contempt due to their inability to produce the former governor in court. The trial was again stalled due to his absence in court, which prompted the prosecution counsel Kemi Pinheiro, SAN, to urge the court to charge the counsel representing the former governor for contempt and professional misconduct. The prosecution counsel argued that the defense team has written an undertaking to bring their client to court, but allegedly tricked the court. For that, he said, the court should withdraw them from the inner bar and dock them for contempt. The defense counsel Adiola Adedipe, SAN, argued that they have done everything within their power to produce the former governor in court, but failed, just like the EFCC, who was granted court order to arrest and arraign the defendant. Adiola Adedipe, SAN, who informed the court that their client has asked the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court to transfer his trial to Kogi State, where the alleged crime is said to be perpetrated, applied to withdraw his appearance in court for the former governor, since he is not the lead counsel. The presiding judge, Justice Emeka Nwete, will equally rule on that application on 17th of July. Yahaya Bello, when he eventually appears in court, will be standing trial on an alleged 82 billion naira fraud. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, as the prosecuting agency, has filed 19 counts charge against Yahaya Bello before the Federal High Court in Abuja. In the meantime, the federal government, in collaboration with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, is fine-tuning a document on policy and practice directions on restorative justice in Nigeria's judicial system. Austin Anyebe reports that the document is undergoing a review and validation by stakeholders in the justice sector.
Restorative justice is a criminal justice system that focuses on the rehabilitation of offenders through reconciliation with victims and the community at large. The main goal of restorative justice is to repair harm by providing an opportunity for those harmed. Stakeholders at the review and validation meeting in Abuja listed programs under the concept of restorative justice to include mediation and conflict resolution, family group conferences, victim impact panels, victim offender mediation, psycho-sentencing, and community reparative boards.
The United Nations Congress on Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice declared that in order to promote the interests of victims and the rehabilitation of offenders, there's a need to develop restorative justice policies, procedures, and programs that include alternatives to prosecution. Adopting those documents is the first step in establishing a criminal justice system that provides an opportunity to all affected parties, that is offenders, victims, their families, and the community to participate in addressing the crime and repairing the harm caused by it.
Considering the relevance of the documents to be passed to the National Assembly soon, the event attracted a wide range of stakeholders for open and constructive dialogue.
Chief Justice offers unique opportunity to foster a more compassionate and inclusive justice system, address the root causes of conflicts and crimes, promote accountability and responsibility, support victims' recovery and empowerment.
If eventually passed into law, it will engender a shift from retributive to restorative justice, but excluding some capital offences. In Abuja, Austin Anyebe, NTA News.
Let's bring you other news as the Senate has granted approval to extend implementation of the capital components of the 2023 Appropriation Act and the supplementary to 31st December 2024. The amendment bills were given expeditious consideration as requested by President Tinubu on the first day of plenary after the Salah break. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports.
Request for further amendment of the Appropriation Act.
Senate brought forward its resumption date to attend to the request as the life cycle of the two acts were to elapse in 3 days' time. The expeditious passage was to ensure completion of critical projects captured in the budgets.
This will go a long way to avoid the compounding problems of abandoned projects. Hence, the need for the enactment of these proposed legislations to extend the implementation.
Extending the lifespan of the budget is necessary to execute projects in order to ensure that no projects are abandoned.
Some of these budgets have been paid 50%, 70%, or 30%. Are we going to leave it? The answer is no.
Indicate that the supplementary budget is not just a rollover, but an extension
to December 31st, 2024, and for related matters, 2024. Third reading taken and passed.
The two acts are being amended for the third time, previously to 31st March, then to 30th June, and now to 31st December 2024. Meanwhile, Senate leader Senator Ogbeyemi Bamidele, in response to insinuations in some sections of the media, explains that there is no request before the Senate to approve purchase of a presidential jet.
There is the presence of a fifth columnist and some other propagandists who are doing everything possible to destabilize this country and also destabilize the parliament.
This issue was never discussed. How did they conjure that story?
In another development, Chairman Senate Committee on Media and Publicity, Senator Yemi Adaramodu, says Senate will be diligent when it receives the national minimum wage bill from the executive for approval.
We are still even going to call the stakeholders, even when we want to do the law. No matter the agreement and the arrangement out there, we are still going to go through the crucibles of lawmaking before it can become a law of minimum wage for Nigerians.
In the meantime, Senate extends condolence to the Nigeria Customs Service as it observes a minute silence to honor late Deputy Comptroller of Customs, Etop Anju, who died this week at the House of Representatives. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And at the House of Representatives, lawmakers also considered and passed two bills from President Bola Tinubu to extend the implementation of the 2023 budget and the 2023 supplementary budget to 31st December 2024. National Assembly correspondent Mitere Ikpen reports that both bills generated debate on the floor, but eventually received expeditious approval at the Committee on Supply, chaired by Speaker Tajuddin Abbas.
Lawmakers resume for the second year of the 10th Assembly, and before them are two executive bills for consideration.
To extend implementation of the Appropriation Act 2023 and the Supplementary Appropriation Act 2023 to 31st December 2024.
The bills garnered support as well as reservations.
This is to make life easy for everyone, to complete the project, because we don't want abandoned projects.
I might not oppose this in principle because I want this project concluded. But in terms of procedure, I feel a little bit worried. A situation where we will have 3 budgets running concurrently. And then we're also expecting, sincerely, a supplementary budget for 2024, which means that we have 4 budgets running in a country.
I admire the minority leader who has been in this chamber for the last 4 sessions, and he knows the procedure and he knows the way things are being done. You cannot extend the period of supplementary budget without extending the period of the main budget, which hinges on the main budget.
I will be for it, and I will urge people to be for it. But at least at this critical moment, we must unite ourselves and we must stand collectively and send a signal to the government of the Federation.
Let the House go into executive session to discuss this issue amongst ourselves.
After the closed-door session, the executive bills were passed at the Committee on Supply.
We have all agreed that it is in the best interest of the country to support this particular request from Mr. President to get the supplementary budget extended so that our security agencies who are waiting for these funds to be able to access it and be able to continue improving the security of the country.
3 other bills were passed. They are the Nigeria Anti-Doping Center Establishment Bill, the bill to domesticate and enforce the African Union Convention to protect internally displaced persons, as well as the bill prohibiting exportation of maize or its derivatives in commercial quantities. From the National Assembly, Mitaire Ikben, NTA News.
There will be more news right after this break. You're watching NTA Network News. The National and State Steering Committees on Child Labor across the 36 states of the Federation and FCT have been tasked to intensify pragmatic measures towards the protection of child rights and elimination of child labor in Nigeria. This was the thrust of the National Children Conference on the elimination of child labor in commemoration of the 2024 World Day Against Child Labor. Joseph Osen has details.
From different schools, these children lay bare their understanding of what child labor is. It is clear many understand the implication of child labor and do not wish it on anybody but seek intervention to end the scourge.
Child labor, from what I've learned, is when you force a child to engage in activities that affect their mental, social, physical well-being, and which can totally take away their childhood from them.
Domestic house help, selling things and the rest, there are those forms of child labor.
This National Children Conference on the elimination of child labor is organized by the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment in collaboration with the International Labour Organization.
It is a global menace that has proven to potentially hinder the development of children, leading to a lifelong physical and psychological damage and keeping the children out of school.
April 2024, the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics launched the Nigeria Child Labor Survey, which shows that there are more than 62 million children aged 5 to 17 in the country, out of which 24 million are engaged in child labor and 14 million in hazardous work.
So we definitely look forward to having the labour standard bill passed, because there are a lot of provisions that actually concern the elimination of child labour that we're looking forward to. One of it is the minimum age for employment.
The review and validation of all relevant laws, regulations and policies to advocate are key and instruments to eliminating child labour. In Abuja, Joseph Utsen, NTA News.
Now, to have a sense of just how bad the situation is with regards to child labor in Nigeria and how the tide is swinging in this regard, let's bring in Ruth Aguele, who is live in the studio. Ruth, what is the true picture of things in terms of statistics with regards to child labor in Nigeria? We've seen so many appalling and shocking, stories of child abuse with children being put to labor.
Indeed, Jummai, thank you. I was actually smiling at you, but not smiling at the numbers, because looking at the numbers of child labor in Nigeria, it's not pleasant. We have 24 million children involved, according to the NBS, that's the National Bureau of Statistics, and then 14.3 million engaged in hazardous work. Now, you see children below the ages of 15 engaged in mining, artisanal kind of work, and which is nothing to write home about. And in 2019, if you recall, it's just 3 or less than 4 years from now, 8.7 million children are engaged in one labor or the other. Now, just given a gap of 4 years, and we're not seeing the numbers decrease, rather we're seeing the numbers increase. Now, let's look at actually the states. We have like 10 states who are top in the chart, but we'll just give you 5 top states, who are already on the chart. We have Cross River, 67.4%. Now, note that this states, whatever child labor, it's peculiar. The indices are peculiar to each state, and that's why we have these numbers here. Yobe State, 62.6%. Abia is having 60.1%. Plateau, 58.9%. And Taraba, 58.6%. Akwa Ibom is also on that chart. Ebonyi is also on that chart. It's quite appalling that, children are engaged in different kind of apprenticeship, or you want to name it. And there are different causes actually to this norm. Let's look at the causes, according to the dynamics of this child labor. Poverty, we hear, is one of it, and of course the cultural number. But just before we get to that, yes, that's it, poverty, and then lack of education. Poverty, a lot of people who maybe have lost their parents or are living in one form of rural communities or the other, and you find them, not being able to go to school. So the only means of survival, because they're trapped in poverty, they get to engage in different kinds of labor. And then lack of education, of course, this part normally affects the girl child, but the boy child is also not left out in this trajectory. And the cultural norms, some cultures believe that you can't have a child go to school, but rather should engage in one form of apprenticeship or the other. And it's quite sad, Jumai, to see that children below the ages of 10 are also being taken, to go and learn apprenticeship. Now, let's go back to the demographic we saw earlier. Now, this is a breakdown, 5 to 17 years. We have 62 million children in Nigeria, looking at the population. Now, 30.3% of that population, that's the 62.9 million children we're seeing there. Then you have the rural areas and the urban areas. Now, the urban centers are also not left out. This doesn't just happen in the rural communities, because we've seen the numbers, 62.4% in rural areas and then 37.6% in these rural areas. There's been intervention from the federal government and, of course, development partners. Let's look at the policy interventions. Now, the Child Rights Act of 2003, it's been 18 years since the Child Rights Act was, passed into law. And we hear only 24 states out of the 36 states have adopted, or rather domesticated, this act. Then we have the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, which nations are signatory to this convention. Now, what does it entail? Just protect the rights of the child. It's a multifaceted approach. Now, most of these children cannot speak for themselves. We have the Human Rights Commission, who it's on their part are doing their best to ensure that rights of everyone is being protected. But what is really touching for us, Jummai, is that the child should be protected. And as the world, all over continue to lend their voices on protecting the child, against hard labels of such, we will continue to do our parts here by looking at the numbers, and we don't want to see the numbers go high, but rather come down. And let's hope that interventions from those, authorities involved do the needful so that these children, their rights can be protected and taken off the street and taken off those hard labor, Jummai.
Ruth, thank you. And I believe this is timely children need to be protected from, heartless people who put them to labor, and I believe that the government will push for stricter, measures against these people. Thank you so much, Ruth. Moving on, former Vice President of Liberia, Dr. Joel Howard Taylor, has lauded public relations profession, describing it as providing a veritable platform for crisis management and response, while advocating transparency and accountability in social and corporate governance. She stated this in her message at the Diamond Anniversary of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations in Abuja, where the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Muhammad Idris, also disclosed that President Tinubu will soon launch a National Value Charter, a document for national reorientation in Nigeria. Hamman Jabani reports.
With the theme, Relations, Value, Reorientation and Economic Transformation, former Vice President of Liberia, Joel Howard Taylor, went down memory lane to express how public relations help her in building her reputation over the years, and that as a double-edged sword chosen to use it for rebranding and problem-solving, the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations is leading in Africa to change the perception.
You are in a new era. It is my prayer that your leadership will go beyond Nigeria to all other nations in our region and then to the rest of our continent to show that there are comparable institutions of public relations which set the pace for the new but united Africa we desire.
We have the power to influence the world. You have the power to influence the world.
As public communicator, one of the first things that you should do is to ensure that whatever you are saying, you are telling people the truth and nothing but the truth. Trust must return to public communication, because that's the only way that Nigerians or whoever you are communicating with will come to agree with you, respect you, and even listen to you.
With the challenge to design a new narrative for Nigeria, the NIPR says it will stand on 7 core pillars of trust and truth, hope, effective and responsible communication, rebuilding relationships, restoring respect for one another, citizens' reorientation and re-engagement, leadership accountability, and deliberate promotion of made-in-Nigeria products.
It is now time for Nigerians, who will be the new Nigerians, to build the new Nigeria, to now wisely, consciously reprogram Nigeria for genuine transformation and economic development.
The celebration saw the award of honorary fellow to prominent personalities that have contributed to the profession in Nigeria.
The whole essence is to have effective and consistent communication between the government and the governed. It poses challenge to me to do much more than I had done before.
The institute was established in 1963 and became chartered following the signing into law decree number 16 of June 1st, 1990, titled Nigerian Institute of Public Relations Practitioners Degree 1990. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
The Nigeria Governors Forum has expressed commitment towards sustained negotiation in arriving at an acceptable solution to the national minimum wage debate between government and the organized labor. The forum says this in a communique signed by its chairman and governor of Kwara State, Abdulrahman Abdulrazak, and made available to the press after a closed-door session that lasted several hours at the NGF Secretariat. The forum also received a presentation from the World Bank Country Director and Women Affairs Ministry in the implementation of series of projects on the World Bank financing. The Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Reforms also made a far-reaching presentation, while the Zamfara State Governor, Dauda Lawal, spoke to journalists on other issues.
There's going to be consultation with governors, so we haven't met yet. Likely we may meet tomorrow, so it is only when we meet, then you know the outcome.
Your Excellency, what is the future of agriculture now that there seems to be a paradigm shift from the crude oil, and the northern governors are challenged to invest more in agriculture? What is the future about our state?
Generally, the northern Nigeria is an agrarian economy, and all the governors are making conscious effort to make sure there are changes in agriculture, one of which is making adequate provision in terms of providing fertilizer, seedlings, as well as new technology to improve agriculture, rather the subsistence farming that we're used to.
The forum also agreed to meet on other burning issues that will bolster impact on the renewed hope agenda. Now, barring the delayed rains this season, the federal government is aiming to boost farming in the season with free fertilizer to be distributed to farmers soon. State House correspondent Musbau and Wahab reports on other issues at the National Economic Council NEC meeting this Thursday.
After the protracted meeting, relevant governors and ministers reported on the operationalization of a food system coordinating unit targeting improved food production. Apart from the intervention under which 42,000 metric tons of grains were distributed to state governments and 20 trailers of rice per state, a Greek minister says evacuation of 1.5 million bags of fertilizer is now underway by state for onward delivery to farmers.
The rainy season is upon us now, and we have urged the state governors to assiduously evacuate the fertilizer so that it can be of benefit to our teeming farmers. Fertilizer is to be distributed free of charge.
The minister also reported on the mechanization program of the federal government targeting development of agro-service centers and provision of tractors, farm implements, among others. Finance Minister and Coordinating Minister of Economy updated the council on the excess crude accounts.
As of now, there's basically $500,000 in that account, $500,000 US. The stabilization account has 28.7 billion naira, and the Natural Resources Development Fund has 53.9 billion naira.
He also reported on the verified social register, which the governors have now agreed on for the continuation of a social investment program.
And in addition to that, we are looking at ways of essentially improving the mechanism by which payments are made so that they can be made quicker, and the verifications that are necessary can be speeded up.
Meanwhile, the ad hoc committees on flood disaster mitigation, crude oil theft, and the subcommittee on economy submitted their reports respectively.
And the National Economic Council took judicious note of all recommendations, and while implementing the immediate measures, has requested for us to come with a final report that will serve as a permanent solution to the incident of crude oil thefts in
the nomination.
The council also approved the nominations of the board members for the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, with Borno State Governor representing the Northeast, Katsina State Governor representing Northwest, Kwara State Governor for North Central, Imo State Governor for Southeast, Ekiti Governor for Southwest, while Akwa Ibom State Governor will represent the South-South geopolitical zone on the board. From the State House, Musbah and Wahab, NTA News.
You're watching NTA Network News. We'll be right back. You're welcome back, and Benny Adams is standing by with business news. Hello, Benny.
Thank you, Jumai. The Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, says the journey towards integrating crypto assets into Nigeria's capital market is advancing despite uncertainties. This is as the Association of Capital Market Academics of Nigeria hosts a conference with the theme, Crypto Assets and the Nigerian Capital Market. For the Chairman, Senate Committee on Capital Market and Institutions, or SITA Izunaso, the time to settle for a robust and sustainable regulatory framework is now, noting that total market capitalization of all cryptocurrencies combined stands an impressive $2.59 trillion, with Nigeria having 33.4% ownership or usage of cryptocurrencies.
So everything you learned in your PhD, your thesis on crypto, please bring it to bear right now, so that the country will begin to benefit from this very large trade. It is not something that we will now begin to say we don't have money in Nigeria, there's no currency, there's no liquidity, and money is flying in the air. Why don't we arrest it and make it more meaningful?
And that is why at the SEC, our proposal in the future is to set up a department dedicated to fintech and innovation. And within fintech and innovation, everything regarding cryptocurrency, digital assets, and wallet custodians will be adequately dealt with.
The regulators, CBN, SEC, and probably others are beginning to look at cryptocurrency as an asset. I think it's extremely important to take the investor into consideration. What does he know? Does he understand?
As the marriage of ideas between the gown and town grows, some distinguished economists were inducted into AGMAN. And still talking capital markets, the all-share index, investors gained 6.19 billion naira as the all-share index advanced by 0.0% to close at 99,396.26 basis points. A total of 529.3 million shares in 7,616 deals, corresponding to a market value of 10.493 billion naira, were traded. Today's data shows 92% improvement in volume and 155% improvement in turnover. The current market capitalization is 56.2 trillion naira. On the aggregate, 121 listed equities participated in trading, ending with 33 gainers and 16 losers. Guarantee Trust Holding recorded the highest volume of 66.1 million traded shares, followed by UAC of Nigeria, 46.4 million, and Access Holdings, 39.7 million. Well, that is business news. Network News continues with Jumai.
Thank you, Benny. Now, harnessing artificial intelligence as a transformation tool in contemporary military operations is the theme of the National Headquarters and Services Transformation Seminar holding at the Naval Headquarters, Abuja. Defense correspondent Nja'atu Tijani reports that the Navy is also prioritizing workplace well-being and taking proactive measures to prevent sexual harassment, setting a positive tone for the future of military operations in Nigeria.
Focusing on the pivotal role of artificial intelligence in modern naval operations, the Nigerian Navy is hosting the Navy Transformation Seminar, themed Harnessing AI for Effective Naval Operations, bringing together naval experts, tech innovators and strategists to explore the vast potential of AI in enhancing maritime security, surveillance and response.
It is, in fact, the future of military operations, and we must therefore ensure that the armed forces of Nigeria meets up with this evolving technological achievement.
Beyond this seminar, the Nigerian Navy is seeking to leverage artificial intelligence to drive maritime operations through data-driven solutions. The discussion will center around AI applications in areas such as threat detection, autonomous systems, and data-driven insights. This forward-thinking approach positions the Navy at the forefront of technological advancements, also demonstrating its commitment to workplace well-being and stand against gender-based violence and sexual harassment.
And I hope that this policy will, in no small way, help us,
ensuring a more effective and future-ready Nigerian Navy. Naja'atu Tijani, NTA News.
Now, it is looking like chartered flights operations in the country would be getting more attention and scrutiny with the inauguration of a presidential task force in Abuja. Ayodeji Makinde tells us more.
Increase in aerospace activities in any country is good business. However, it becomes bad when it is exploited for fraudulent purposes. This is one spanner in the wheel of Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace Development having received reports on activities of illegal chartered flights operators in the country. This has been used in drug trafficking, money laundering and other illicit businesses, ripping Nigeria of billions in revenue. This cause for concern from National Security Advisor and Minister Festus Keyamo has birthed an 8-member task force. The task force, chaired by Captain Ado Sanusi, has representatives from the Presidential Air Fleet, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, private airline operators, and the ministry.
That I will not be a lame duck minister. Those who hold contrary views, I'm prepared to fight them to the end of my day here. I'm the supervisor of the regulator. And if I fold my hands that you're not doing something, I will interfere. I will come in to say, why are you not doing your work?
The task force has 3 months' mandate to scrutinize, including recall of licenses of pilots and crew workers for validation and halts to illegal chartered flights in Nigeria's aerospace. In Abuja, Ayodeji, Makinde, NTA News.
More than 300 beneficiaries from POE community in the Federal Capital Territory have benefited from the 3 days medical outreach organized by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Delu Bulus Yakubu, and development partners. Ruth Akwele tells us more.
My 5 children have been ill for quite some time now, but this is something I will never forget. I am so grateful for this life-changing experience. I thank the organizers for remembering us.
Hajara Zubairu, a mother of 5, is among residents of POA community in the FCT who have benefited from the 3 days medical outreach organized by the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Delu Bulus Yakubu, in collaboration with development partners, a gesture demonstrating federal government's efforts in bringing quality health care to vulnerable groups in the Federal Capital Territory.
I want to assure Nigerians that we're moving to the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. After that, we're going to the 36 states. I want to thank the health workers and the participants for their support towards the success of this program. This is the way of bringing hope to Nigerians.
Now we can see the hope of Mr. President, Alhaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu, coming down to the women. She has already brought us together and all the women are happy.
Our children have benefited from this program. Of course, you know, scholarships were given to kids. Kids without hope can now go to school.
For the volunteer health workers, it has been 3 days of rigorous service, which they see as service to humanity.
I want to reach out to the less privileged in order to see that healthcare is something that we need to take it serious. So people are passing through difficulties and they need our help.
I appreciate the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President. They did wonderfully well. Everything was made available for us to do, from the testing, the screening, to the treatment.
We cannot even have money to buy malaria drugs. But when the this program come here, we had drugs free.
Participants were recognized for their contribution and sacrifices for the well-being of others. As this chapter closes, the gesture is expected to continue across the country. The expectation is to build a healthy nation for a prosperous future. In Abuja, Ruth Aguela, NTA News.
There will be more right after this break. You're welcome back. The remains of late Mama Aisha Suleiman Mohammed, mother of the Minister of State, Police Affairs, Iman Suleiman Ibrahim, have been laid to rest in her hometown, Kefi, amid tears and encomiums from Nigerians. Christy Ayagwa Adaji reports.
The funeral prayers for the late Mama Aisha to Suleiman Mohammed was a solemn occasion that brought together personalities, including relatives, political leaders, among whom were Nasarawa State Governor Abdullah Sile, religious and community figures, among others. Chief Imam of Kefi, Ustaz Muhammad Awal, led the prayers at the palace of the Emir of Kefi. Before she was laid to rest at Central Burial Ground. Some Nigerians described the deceased as a pillar whose generosity and contributions towards harmonious coexistence were felt by Nigerians.
I pray in the name of the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give her rahmah, to forgive all her shortcomings.
The success of her husband, the success of her daughter, and the success of her son just goes a long way to show that she has indeed invested quite a lot in the lives of her children and society as a whole.
We don't have anything to say other than to pray to Almighty God so that her soul rests in perfect peace.
All I can pray and hope for is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them the fortitude to bear this irreparable loss.
She was a wonderful sister, a sister everybody would wish for. I enjoyed being her brother, and I'm going to miss her greatly.
Mama wasn't just a mother, she was a father. Mama was one uniting force in the entire family.
Honestly, I'm feeling devastated. I'm feeling, at a place. But I like gifts and I like texts.
Aged 66, late Mama Aishatu Suleiman Mohammed died in her sleep, leaving behind 6 children and aged mother. Prominent among them is the Minister of State Police Affairs, Imam Suleiman. From Kefi, Christy Ayagwa Adaji, NTA.
In the meantime, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and former President Muhammadu Buhari have condoled the family of Minister of State Police Affairs Imam Suleiman Ibrahim over the death of her mother, and they pray for the repose of the soul to grant her Al-Jannah Firdaus. The families of Anaze and Mosindi of Umuahomi and Umuolo quarters on Icha Ugbo in Aniocha local government area of Delta State have announced the demise of their daughter, wife, mother, Stella Maria Mosindi, who passed away on the 27th February 2024. Burial arrangement as announced by Mary Mosindi, Deputy Director Programs at the Nigerian Television Authority, indicates that a service of songs was held earlier today in honor of the deceased at All Saints Catholic Church, Onitsha Ugbo, Delta State. The final interment is slated for Friday, June 28 at the Mosindi family home in Onitsha Ugbo. A Thanksgiving and outing service is also scheduled to hold at All Saints Catholic Church on Sunday, June 30, 2024. Mrs. Stella Maria passed at the age of 76. And that's NTA Network News. Thanks so much for your time. I am Jummai Yusuf.